Hello, everybody. This is Vincent Hugo from Fractal Universe, and welcome to another stream of ours. This is the newest episode of the Fractal Talk, the third one, and today our guest is Max Phelps from the band Exist and many other stuff as well. So, hello, Max. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, this is awesome.
So, how are you doing? Is everything all right so far?
Yeah, things are pretty good, I would say. Pretty busy lately, but with a whole bunch of different things, I'm juggling. But yeah, things are good. How about you guys?
Yeah, doing good. Working on new stuff. We had a couple shows in September and October, so that was nice being back on stage and stuff like that. But apart from that, it's quite cool at the moment.
Were the oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
So I was just telling for the people who don't know you, maybe you can give a little introduction about who you are and what you've done, basically how you started playing music and all of that stuff.
So my name is Max Phelps. I play in a band called Exist, which is sort of like my baby that I've been doing for, I guess it's been over 10 years now. And then I also played live for Cynic, and I have done a bunch of the Death to All tours, which are, for those that don't know, they are these tours where a bunch of members from the band Death, ex-members, will go out and play the songs. And then I also did the Defeated Sanity Dharmata EP, which is kind of like a spin-off from their usual sound, for those that know the band.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I've looked into it. Yeah, it's kind of a tribute to kind of the old school death metal scene. It's quite different
Yep.
from their usual material, which is a really extreme brutal death.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of, that's more or less what it was. It was in a way kind of like a tribute, to Death and Watchtower and Cynic and all that sort of stuff. And he's actually writing more of that right now. So I think I don't know, it might be a while, but I think there's going to be at least like another EP or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And yeah, basically, how did you start playing music? What was the trigger that made you want to play the guitar?
So I took piano lessons when I was in elementary school, and I only did it for like 2 years, and it didn't really stick. Although I think I enjoyed it. Honestly, I think the reason I quit was because the teacher wanted me to do a recital, and then I just didn't want to do that. So I was like, I'm out. And but yeah, so then when I was about 13, my best friend, who is still one of my best friends, and I've been friends with this guy since I was like 4. He was playing guitar already, and he was really into like a lot of kind of classic rock stuff. Like he was really into the Beatles, really into Hendrix, and he had started taking guitar lessons. And so I sort of just did that. Like I was, he was really into it, and I was like, oh, well, that looks kind of neat. But it wasn't, I didn't really have any grandiose expectation for it. It was like I still almost don't know why, like, or what I was thinking, But so I started taking lessons with the same teacher that he was taking lessons with, who was a really great teacher at the time and really kind of a great mentor for, us at that age. And a bunch of other friends of mine took lessons with this same guy and ended up going really far. A lot of them are professional musicians. Not even just because of the drummers too. He taught drummers, and he taught some really great drummers. But yeah, I think there was sort of a mindset about the way he taught that was not very principled. It was more, like he wasn't really critiquing us that much, but there was something about it that I just kind of subconsciously fell in love with. It was like there was some point where I realized sitting in my room that I was doing that more than playing video games. It almost like took the place of that.
All right.
So, yeah.
And yeah, did you have some other musical education apart from that later on, or?
Yeah, well, I took lessons with him for like 2 or 3 years, and then I stopped because I got like a part-time job when I was like 15 or something like that, and it just schedule-wise didn't work out. But I kept playing and learning a lot of stuff by ear at that point. And then when I was 19, I started really studying music like seriously again. I was already playing in bands. And I was already serious about music, but then I went to a teacher who is like a real serious sort of like he used to be like a New York studio musician kind of guy who would do a lot of, he did like Broadway and he did a lot of commercials, and I studied with him for a long time, and started really studying the jazz stuff with him, and yeah, I guess so that was kind of my entry to like more of a formal education with that, and I studied with him for a really long time. I went to college, but I was only actually there for a semester. Actually, that's not true. I went to a community college for like a semester before that. But I had guitar teachers at both of those places too, and I was in their jazz program doing that. And then the Cynic thing happened while I was there. I ended up getting the Cynic gig, after emailing Paul after Timon left the band. And so then I dropped out of school, but I've still studied with private teachers like since then, kind of, not in a while, but although, I feel like there's always room to, it's always time is the factor, right?
Yeah, definitely. I was going to
Yeah.
ask about Cynic right after this, actually.
Mhm.
But before that, yeah, would you say that learning how music functions basically helped you out as a musician and helped you like understanding things better? Or do you have more like a raw approach to it still now? Or?
So it's both, because I still consider myself to first and foremost be like, like when I write, it's really more from intuition. And so I'm not, I don't know if I consider myself more analytical. I'm not really sure. I think it depends maybe who I'm up against or what, like who you're comparing to. But I consider myself to be coming more from the intuitive side, but I do think that doing that changed the way that I think about music a lot, in terms of not even in an analytical way, but just immersing yourself in that. Like, I know for a fact the way I hear harmony changed a lot from, doing the standards and just sort of learning how to play through like a harmonic form a million different ways, and sort of learning the ropes of what that really is in this less literal kind of, or it is literal, but it's not like you hear a riff and that riff is that riff. You're like, there's a broader concept that you can kind of work with there. So I do think that influenced me a lot, and it made it so that I hear a lot of possibilities, like when I'm writing, or my melodic sense, I think, sort of developed through that, and through playing guitar. I think the guitar's influenced the way that, because a lot of stuff I write is, sometimes it's on guitar, but a lot of it's in my head too. Like, or at least the basis of where things come from, the more core ideas of a song might be things that I just sort of hear in my head, or they're things that if I play them on guitar, then I end up, I'll hike or I'll do whatever, and then I'm hearing music in my head and then sort of going back and forth. So that's a pretty intuitive thing, but I do think it's influenced by studying that stuff analytically.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of feel the
Yeah.
same. Like learning all this
Mhm.
stuff kind of shapes your intuition as well. You get new ideas,
Yes.
you get exposed to new stuff, and that then
Yes.
becomes natural, I think. And
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of that's just from listening too. But yeah, if you can dissect what you're listening to in a way, then yeah, it does create, then when you're not thinking about it later, because I think a lot of people maybe mistake that as thinking that if like a lot of people are scared to learn theory and all that
yeah,
stuff, because I think they think it's going to like change, maybe they're going to become boring, or maybe they're not going to enjoy music the same way, or maybe their writing is going to become boring. But I think at the core, like regardless of if you know that stuff or not, it's most of the music that we all really enjoy is kind of coming from more of an intuitive place, I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Definitely. I think it's
Yeah.
as I said, learning all of this stuff is an amazing tool to expand your vocabulary. But the thing is to make it become natural afterwards. So
Right.
that's
Right.
and not overthink it. That's basically
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's true for writing and for improvising. I think like the guys who are really great improvisers tend to think like that more as well, where it seems like if they hit a certain point, they're not, I don't know. Maybe I'm sure everybody has a different take on that too. But
Yeah, I think like improvising is like conversation. Yeah.
mhm.
When we are talking, we are using words we learned, sentences
Yeah,
we maybe used before, but combine them in a different way, and that's kind of an intuitive process. But with everything you learned since you're a child, like with the conversation thing, and it's kind of the same with music to me. Like it's it's all the practice you put into it coming out spontaneously. So
yeah, I agree with that. And so yeah, going back to the, how did that influence things? I do think it probably does have a big influence on things, but it's also not something that, and you're probably the same way where, yeah, you're not consciously always thinking about that. But if you have to dissect something, usually if I analyze something, it's usually more to explain something to somebody else, or to teach it or something. It's not, I don't know. But it does help for, I don't know, knowing your way around the fret or like, these
yeah,
gigs I'm doing right now, which are more like these freelance kind of gigs, it helps to know a whole bunch of different ways to play a song or something, or especially if you're kind of figuring that out as you go in real time. um
yeah. And do you have an idea how you visualize your instrument on the guitar? Do you think of note names, of intervals, of a little blend of everything?
yeah, it kind of depends what I'm doing. It depends what I'm doing. I used to be like real shape oriented, which I feel is like kind of common on guitar.
Mm.
Because it takes a long time to really learn the layout of the instrument, right? Like it's not a linear instrument like piano is pretty uh, the visualization is pretty straightforward, whereas guitar is like, it takes a while to really learn that. So it's a combination of all those things because I do think notes a lot, but it sort of also depends on what I'm doing. I guess sometimes I'll, think things where it's more pattern oriented or yeah, I guess it depends on what I'm doing and what it requires and also how much energy I've put into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned like guitar being not very linear in terms of of the layout, but I think
Yeah.
once you understood the construction basically of the intervals where they are placed on the guitar becomes very very easy actually compared to an instrument like piano or saxophone that I picked up recently, where you have to learn every new key basically. You have to play
Well,
differently
that's
in every key, and that's the great thing about guitar, is that you can play in any key without thinking about it. Just have to.
that is true. Yeah, that is true. And I think that's why we become so pattern oriented. Yeah, because we can just
Yeah.
transpose stuff really easily. And yeah, the intervals are pretty much all the same except for that damn B string.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned that you met the guys from Cynic over there. Can you tell us a little bit more about how this happened and how it was overall to play with them?
Well, I was just a huge fan. Like I got really, really into Focus kind of around when I was probably like late high school or maybe like a little out of high school, and that became like my favorite album ever. And then that happened to be like just maybe a year or two after that, they were doing the reunion stuff, and then that turned into the Traced and Air thing. So I was just a huge fan of the band. Which I discovered also through Death. I think that's probably a pretty common.
Yeah, definitely.
That's probably the normal lineage for most people, or at least from then. Like maybe some people discover Cynic through the newer stuff now. I don't know, but um, so yeah, so I saw them when they toured for Traced and Air, like probably every opportunity that I could. And then when Timon left, it didn't take me much time to be like, we even opened actually the first show. Funny story, like because Exist originally we were called Asriel, and then we switched the name to Exist. And the first show that we actually played under the Exist name in like 2000, probably 2009 or something like that, was actually opening for Cynic. So, but yeah, so I saw them a bunch of times. Huge fan of the band, and then when Timon announced he was leaving, I just was kind of like, oh, well, I can, I already scream and play guitar in a band, so like I think I could probably, take a shot at that. And I sort of just emailed Paul and sent him a bunch of stuff that that I like Exist had our first EP out at that point, and I sent him some videos and stuff. I emailed him to both him and John and their manager, and then he got back to me not too long after that. And then we kind of talked on and off for like a year, and then when they were touring again, he hit me up and was like, yeah, I guess you want to come out here and try this. And so then I live on the East Coast, they're on the West Coast, they're in LA. And so then I happen to have an aunt who lived she just passed away last year, but she lived in LA, and I would go out there and live with her. And I started rehearsing with them, and we did like the Carbon-Based Anatomy tours not too long after that. So.
Okay, yeah, well, distance didn't seem to stop them since Timon and Robin were from Netherlands. So
yeah, although I think that was a difficulty. I think they definitely wanted to work with American musicians just because an international band is tough with the visas and everything. And so yeah, but
what they did with this lineup worked out really well, I think. So I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
And, someone in the chat at these courses is mentioning that Human turns 30 years old just today.
I saw that today. Yeah.
So that's great. What does this record mean to you?
Well, it was the first one I heard. It was the first Death album that I ever heard, and I played in a band with. Do you know who Anup Sastry is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I played in a band with him, and that was actually the first I heard Death. Was like the guy who was like the front man of that band wanted to cover Lack of Comprehension. And then I think we never like actually got it together to learn. Like I think like I learned the song, but then there was another band I played in with Alex, the current Exist bass player, and we would cover The Philosopher. Although so I guess we're talking just about Human. Yeah, that was when I discovered that album. And I think the one that I first really got into was Symbolic, but then I went back through the whole discography. And then obviously, like, that Human led to the Cynic thing, like getting into that. And so, yeah, it's the album's a game changer, especially like with the drum approach to it. It's kind of insane, like how many, really prominent metal drummers I've talked to who, they're like, Reinhardt was the dude, So yeah, it's crazy. It's 30 years old.
It's crazy. Actually, without Death, I think I would maybe not play the kind of music I play today, because Death was my introduction to death metal, to progressive death metal, to all that kind of stuff. And I discovered the band through Individual Thought Patterns, which is still my favorite record. Same way as Lorian in the chat, I think.
The same what?
Same. Someone in the chat says it's their favorite record as well. So.
Oh, right on.
It's good to read that.
Yeah, I think for me it's probably Symbolic, but I feel like Death is one of those bands that like there's songs from every album that I would consider to be favorites, including the older stuff, like the first three. So yeah, I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a unanimous like there's not a consensus of what the best album is. Everybody seems to have their own favorite, right? So maybe that speaks to the whole discography in a way.
Yeah, I think they really well. Chuck really reinvented himself with each album. I think
Right.
each stands out on its own, and it's great that after such a long career, he still managed to bring out stuff that was new for music in general. I think like
Yeah.
when he released Human, it was groundbreaking, and later on the more melodic side of things with individual thought patterns, symbolic, and Sound of Perseverance. Each time it was something new brought to the table. And I think many bands from today can still benefit from that and are still influenced by that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, well, yeah, because it's different movements of the genre too, because it's, you know, first it was just death metal in general, because I think it was like Possessed was really considered like the first death metal band, and then Death is right after that with Scream Bloody Gore. And that was, it's funny hearing people talk about, because I've talked to people who were at that Milwaukee Metal Fest. That was like the first, I guess the first, I don't know if it was the first performance that they did, but it was, I know it exposed Chuck to like a huge audience. Like it was one of the things that was considered like one of the big debut shows. And yeah, it's funny just if you talk to like an old schooler who was at that show, just hearing them talk about that vocal approach, because it was like nobody had heard that at the time, and I guess it really had a crazy impression on everybody.
Definitely. And how was it for you when you got called out to play for the Death to All shows? How did that happen, and what did you feel when that happened?
It happened through the Cynic thing. Through Paul and Sean. They basically brought me into that. That's a lot of pressure.
I can imagine.
Yeah. But the thing that did kind of break the ice a little is that for me personally is just maybe that playing at Cynic was already a lot of pressure, because it's following two very, very good guitar players. And that's a band that the magnifying glass is really on. And then also they had already done one Death to All tour before I was involved, with Matt Harvey and Charles Elliott kind of splitting the vocal duties. So, I think that made it a little less daunting, at least just in the sense that it wasn't like I was the first person stepping into that position and doing the Chuck thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of pressure, because it's really something that is really important to a lot of people. And, so it's, I mean, and at the end of the day, it's like, you can't really fulfill, like, you can't be somebody else, you know what I mean? You can't, so it's like, you just have to do the best that you can. And, but it's a lot of fun. It's a huge honor, it's, I like everybody that's been involved, and I have a lot of really great memories from, being on the road with those guys. With both, because we've kind of done, or at least I've done kind of two different lineups. One was the Human lineup, doing it with the Cynic guys, and then it kind of turned more into the Symbolic guys with Steve instead of Kelly Conlon. And so, yeah, I don't know. I still talk to, I talk to Steve all the time. I was on the phone with him yesterday. So, but yeah, so it's a huge honor to be able to do that. And yeah, at the same time, it's also, it's a lot of pressure, but I guess at least having done it for a while, you sort of kind of accept like, okay, well, the only thing I can do is to do the absolute best that I can at this, and, just try to give it my all. And, beyond that, just have fun with it. And
Yeah, and I think you did a great job with the Punisher in the chat, who says like
do
you
we have a
look
Punisher?
like Chuck, and you sing also like Chuck. You did a really great impersonation of Chuck.
Yeah,
I think
that
I
part
saw
is
you.
really,
I saw
that
you
part's
with the 2 lineups,
coincidence.
I think.
You saw me, when was it?
With the 2 different lineups, I saw you with Sean and Paul, and with Gene and Steve. Then I think.
Okay,
2
right
different
on.
tours. So
Wait,
it was good.
what city was it in?
It was in France, in Colmar. I think it was during the tour with Obscura, and I
Mhm.
think he split duties with Steffen from Obscura
Okay.
on vocals and guitar, I guess.
Yeah, I
If
think
I
that was
remember
like
correctly.
2014,
2013, I think.
20, yeah. But
Later, I
cool.
think he played a festival in the Netherlands where I came to, the Neurotic Death Fest. I think that was with the
I
symbolic
didn't
lineup.
do the Neurotic Death Fest. That was Matt Harvey. But I have done. We've done a lot of shows at the Netherlands, and we have done some other festivals. I think maybe I'm wrong. I might be totally.
I could be wrong as well.
Yeah, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of festivals, and it's crazy how many of those festivals there are in Europe.
So yeah, pretty cool. And what was the most challenging part of it? I mean, which songs or like the whole experience itself was a pretty big challenge, I guess. But
well, I think the hardest part for me is not blowing my voice out for like doing that, especially like with Gene. Gene will, Gene wants to do like a 2-hour set every time, which is that was the hardest thing for me at first, was not, because the first few tours I would like, screaming was okay, but if you talked to me during the day, it was like my voice was just gone, and I had to like, I was always trying to not talk during the day and not talk at night, and then that's hard, and because it's like everybody's kind of partying and stuff, and so that was, and then I think I've gotten better at that over the years, at just doing like a little vocal warm up and then not coming all the way through the gates. So I mean, that's especially with that old school style, because it's very throaty, and it's probably not very good for your voice.
I was going to ask, how did you like start with the whole singing thing? Was it for a band or whatever?
For like the screaming?
Yeah, screaming or singing in general. How did you start out with that?
So it was like the early incarnation of what became Exist, and we had a frontman originally, and then things that kind of didn't work out, and I already was at the point where like I always would write songs and already have like the vocal patterns in mind while I was doing it, and I think I was already writing some lyrics and stuff, and then at some point it just kind of made sense to I don't know, it just became easier to like, okay, well, I'm just gonna kind of do this myself, and then like Chuck was an influence on that too. I mean, because you get into Death, and then he's just like this badass, like kind of screaming and playing guitar, and there's sort of like this no fucks given attitude, I think, in both the screaming and the guitar playing, in a way. So and then so I don't know, it just kind of made sense at the time. And then I didn't originally do the old school thing as much. It was like more of a low thing. And then so I didn't really try doing that old school approach until I was auditioning for Cynic, and I don't know, I just kind of tried that from there, to do that raspier sort of thing with the throaty thing, and it hurt a lot at first, but then you kind of figure out how to do it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, did you find the right approach now? Can you do it without hurting yourself? Or?
I think so, yeah. As long as, there's a little bit of like because I'm not always doing it, like I was doing it a lot earlier this year, for some freelance stuff that I was doing, like I was recording some albums for people. And yeah, I think it's, a lot of it has to do with like properly warming up and just not pushing too hard at first. And there's a certain threshold where you can get a good tone, but it's not like, you don't actually feel, a lot of it's from here. So it is a lot of pressure on the abdomen, but it's, I don't know, it's hard for me to articulate almost, but I think I've found a place where I can do it without really hurting myself or damaging my voice too much.
All right. And you're also doing like clean vocals with Exist?
Yeah.
Did you have a training for that? Or was it like related to your growl technique in terms of like
it just came from hearing melodies and sort of being into a lot, again, like I'm a huge prog head, and so you've got an Opeth shirt, so like, that was another big influence early on, and just being into all that kind of stuff, and then just hearing melodies that were more like that. it came through that. Like originally we were more of like a straight death metal band, and then as the proggier elements kind of came in, which I was always into, like proggy stuff and into a lot of stuff that I'd singing anyway. But yeah, it just became I just tried it and sort of went from there, I guess.
Okay, cool. And coming back to death, you said that doing these long shows was very exhausting for the voice.
Yeah.
And, did you blow up your voice at some point? Was it like always fine during the shows? And you just tried to save your voice during the day?
I've had shows where it felt like a little harder to push it out. There definitely have been shows where it was rougher, but I've never had a show where I didn't feel like I was able to do it. I don't know if it sounds the same every night. I think there's been nights where I'm like, oh, I don't know, but and then like weirdly on those earlier tours, sometimes I would feel like if it got kind of thrashed, it would actually sound a little better for the old school stuff. So it was more like talking was a problem in between the shows, but I'd imagine that can't be good for your voice long term. But I feel like on the later tours, I found ways to do that. And again, I think a lot of it really is just the warming up thing, and then not blasting through it in the first 15 minutes, trying to kind of ease into it a little more. But yeah, I feel like the last few tours we did, which were longer shows anyway, because they always ended up being longer shows with Gene. I think I managed to not blow my voice out too bad. Like I was able to talk in between. It didn't seem like an issue anymore. So I think it just has to do with being careful about it.
Well, he says when singing "Scream Bloody Gore," so throat can happen. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's funny also to hear how Chuck's voice changed over the years, because I think he kind of blew his voice up because it doesn't sound the same at the end of his career compared to the beginning.
I don't know how much of that is because of and I'm sure there are probably guys who are around him who would have a way better idea of this, but I feel like some of that might have just also been an artistic decision, because he was definitely, he definitely wanted to get away from death metal. Like Control Denied, it seems like, was where he really wanted to go. And there's even like, there's that Painkiller cover where it almost sounds like maybe he was kind of kind of trying the waters for that. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much of that was like a physical thing where he had to do that versus just maybe wanting to do that and maybe wanting to feel like the lyrics were a little more intelligible, or maybe wanting to, distance himself from the death metal movement and just kind of, because I think he just wanted to be like a metal band. He didn't, it seems like in interviews and stuff, he didn't really like to think of it as, as like death metal being this separated thing.
Yeah. Jackson is asking if you suffer with your screams in Exist, or is it just like the old school death growling stuff that blows your voice up quite?
Well, Exist doesn't play for 2 hours.
Yeah, that's a big difference, I think.
Yeah, we haven't had the opportunity yet, so I don't know. I mean, I do feel like the last few Death to All tours, it wasn't really suffering. So, Exist, yeah, I don't know how that'll go, because then it's also the clean vocals with that. But I don't know. Where there's a will, there's a way, I guess, unless there isn't. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see. I have no idea. I don't, again, it's just we haven't had an opportunity to play for that long, really, so it hasn't been an issue.
Yeah, that totally makes the difference, I think.
Yeah.
Because with these kind of vocals, when you're at the top of your range or like screaming really loud, I think it's just a matter of for how long you do it every night. And
do you feel like you blow yourself out, or do you feel like it's difficult to go between the clean vocal thing and the screams? Or
well, to me on long shows it's really, really exhausting because also the clean vocals, I have a very low voice. So when I sing clean vocals, I'm almost always at the top of my register, which is kind of hard. So I think it's really physical, like doing these long shows and switching between all the vocal styles. So I
Right.
feel like to 45 minutes I can do it like with no problem, and then I start getting to my limits. So I
Right.
think it's definitely a stamina issue now.
Is that like something you worry about? Where if you're, I don't know, you'll figure it out though. It seems like everybody figures it out. Look at Michael Ackerfeld. He's doing that for like 2 hours, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I don't know if he adjusted his screaming technique, his crawling technique lately, but he still manages to do it really convincingly. So that's amazing after so many years.
Yeah.
And I think a band like Opeth have several long instrumental sections. Maybe it makes a difference in a long set to just have some time for your voice to recover between songs, I think.
Yeah, I think definitely. There are songs on our new record which have very little times without vocals, so these are pretty intense.
And you guys all scream, right? Like I saw on the Slay at Home video that you guys did. Yeah.
Yeah, Vince does all the main vocals, growl and clean and everything, and I do some backing vocals. Both
and
clean.
The bass player Valentin as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We do like clean vocal harmonies with all three of us and some backing growls as well. So it's a lot of work also to pull that up.
I can make some growls, but definitely not in a long set. Even if the sound check lasts too long, I'm already quite tired just with the sound check. So yeah, I'm not the main singer, so I don't really know what it is.
Tini asks us if we prefer headless guitar or headed guitars. It's kind of another topic.
I like both. I don't know. Headless guitars are cool because you can carry them on your back and then you don't hit your head on doorways, right? Or it's good on like an airplane. But as a contrarian, now that headless guitars are popular, I feel that I cannot like them anymore. But I like headless guitars. I got the Steinberger, the CT3 right here, actually, the one that was.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll probably play that tomorrow at my gig.
I think this is your main guitar?
No, lately I've been playing a Kiesel a lot, which does have a headstock. But yeah, I still use the Steinberger a lot for certain things. It sort of depends what I'm doing, I guess.
I think some people like the lightness of the neck. I mean, the headless neck is really light, and some people prefer it that way instead of a heavy headstock, I think.
Well, I had these with one guitar that was always pointing downwards, and that kind of fucked up my hand. So so that's true. It can be convenient if the guitar stays in the same position with the light.
Oh, you mean? Oh, yeah, like
it was dropping downwards. It was like an Ibanez Xiphos or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Neck dive, problem.
I'll say it. But yeah, it kept always falling downwards, and then you play with a totally bent wrist, which is absolutely not good.
Right. Huh. Yeah, I never even thought about the. I just always thought of it as more of a stylistic thing. But the fine tuners are not. I mean, I will say, like, restringing that guitar takes like no time compared to any other guitar. You know, you have to get the double balled strings, but it's very, very fast. So that's kind of cool.
I've got a Strandberg guitar, which is headless, which is pretty nice. I used it to record the rhythm guitars on the record. But mostly I play with my Ibanez Universe guitar.
Okay.
The same one. I've been using that for almost 10 years now. It's been my main guitar ever since. Just love it because it's so versatile. And can do basically anything with it.
Does your Strandberg have, what do you call the neck that's like
The fan frets, you mean? Or I
No,
no, you mean
well,
the neck profile?
Neck
yeah,
shape,
where it's
yeah.
like the kind of squarish, or it's the sharp angle. I don't know what the word for it is.
Yeah.
But maybe someone in the
Uh,
chat knows.
it does. Actually, for me, it's a little bit weird. For some things, it works really well, like better than on a regular neck. But on some places, I'm like on the edge of the of the. I play
square
with
thing,
my
yeah.
thumb on the edge, and that's not very convenient. So I guess it really has to suit your hands and body. So it's not for everyone, I guess.
I was kind of pleasantly surprised because when I first saw those, I was like, "Oh, that looks really uncomfortable." But then I thought it felt really good, actually. Like Paul has those on. I don't know if it's all of his. It might be all of his Strandbergs. I think but yeah, they actually feel really really good. Or I thought they did. I don't know. So yeah, maybe it's just not for everybody. But I was pleasantly surprised by that.
Jackson on
So
the
yeah,
chat ask
go on.
what can you say to someone who can't scream but would like to? Maybe Vince have an answer as well.
Just try different things out and try not to hurt yourself. Try to find proper breathing support. I think having a good breathing technique and support technique is very important here. But then I think it's just trial and error. I think there aren't many things out there that can really help you out. It's a matter of understanding how your vocal cords, all the parts of your vocal anatomy work, I think, and try to use them independently. So try to imitate sounds you hear, stuff like that. But I think it takes time then to get accustomed to it, because these are not techniques you use on a regular basis. I think, like when you talk to people, you don't use the same parts of your voice than when you scream, and that's the big issue, I think.
That's true. Yeah. I pretty much would say something similar. And the other thing is, it seems like everybody who's doing it, like at least a lot of the screamers I've kind of been around on tour, like it seems like everybody's doing slightly different things. And also it seems like everybody's built kind of differently in terms of that. And yeah, I don't really know too much about like vocal anatomy. I'm kind of like clueless with all of that. So I've talked to some, like I know some vocal teachers who can like analyze every little thing that you're doing, and but yeah, so I don't know. That's kind of a tough one because I just sort of tried it, and it took a little while to figure out how to get that exact sound that and it started with like a lower growl, um, and yeah, I don't know. I guess I personally haven't analyzed it too closely. Like if somebody, like I can teach guitar, but if somebody asked me, like, to give screaming lessons, I probably wouldn't know the first thing to do.
It's hard because you don't see what you're doing. Basically, it's all
Right.
happening inside of you. So
Right.
it's a lot harder, I figured, than guitar, where you can see if you're doing something right or wrong. But the voice, it's much harder.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit more about Exist, your main band, and yeah, can you tell us a little bit how this band started out and what you're currently doing?
Well, it started just with I just was writing death metal songs when I was like 19, and uh yeah, I don't know, I guess it just kind of evolved. I mean, I've been doing it since a while before I was involved with Cynic or DTA or any of that stuff. So yeah, it started with that, and the original drummer was Alex Rudinger, who plays for Whitechapel now. Crazy
Ooh.
drummer. Yeah, and so we just were friends when he was like younger than me, and would always hang out kind of with my friend group, and we would jam together a bunch, and then we kind of started a band, and uh wrote a bunch of stuff for that, played a bunch of local shows, and then we kind of parted ways. And the lineup evolved into something more like what it is now, because at least Alex, the bass player, and Matt, the other guitarist, and I have been playing together for well over 10 years. I guess since I think those guys joined in the band in probably like 2009. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was before they were involved. Alex Rudinger and I did record an album that was kind of more like straight ahead death metal stuff. And we ended up basically not releasing it, even though I have some copies of it. But I think it was just the way things kind of went. It was like by the time it would have been ready to, we were already, he was out of the band and we were already doing this other thing that kind of was more reminiscent of what Sunlight turned into, or the In Mirrors EP, which is on our Bandcamp. And it just made sense to kind of, I guess we were excited about that, and we recorded that pretty quickly after. And it just kind of went from there. Like, we played a lot of local shows for a while. Then we kind of stopped playing shows for a while just because I think we got burnt out on doing the local show. Like we were doing those like pay to play kind of shows and stuff. And then, which is like cool for a while, At first it was fun. But then it was like, I personally just want to focus more on music and recording music. And, and then I was doing those things too, the touring stuff. And so it took us a while to really start touring with Exist. We didn't really tour until 2017, and we didn't play any shows for like 3 or 4 years in there. But I guess it's just kind of gone from there. I don't know what else to say about it.
And what tours did you do? I think you toured with Gorguts in the North America, right?
Sorry, this guy, I looked at the chat and this guy said, "Where should I put my thumb?"
Yeah, that was about the Strandberg.
Is he talking about guitar, or just?
I think it's still related to the Strandberg guitar,
or just
it's
life.
It's up to you.
General.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the Gorguts question? The Gorguts tour?
That tour was in 2017 or something like that, right?
Yes, that was when So True, So Bound came out, and yeah, Gorguts was cool enough. I had met them through a DTA tour, and Luke is like the sweetest person on earth. And yeah, they took pity on us and took us out. And it was originally supposed to be Defeated Sanity on that tour also, doing the Dharmata thing, and I was going to be doing double duty, and then they had visa issues and weren't able to make it over, so that was kind of a bummer. But that tour was really fun. And the Gorguts guys were like really gracious about having us out there with them and everything. And so yeah, that was a really good time.
I love the band. Saw them live in Norway one day. Awesome performance. It was funny to see Luke with like his glasses on, shredding his guitar on stage, like a total normal dude playing this twisted, dissonant music. Amazing.
Yeah, he's very much like that. He's like the sweetest person on earth, and then he plays like the nastiest shit ever. And that's a guy who's really, really well. I would say all those guys too. Like, because I don't know if you check out any of the stuff like Kevin and Colin do, like the Dysrhythmia stuff, or just their whole scene, like, because those guys play in a whole bunch of bands in New York, and that's just all very, very it's pretty cool.
I have to check that out. I don't know them.
I mean, if you like the newer Gorguts stuff, you'll dig it. Dysrhythmia.
Check it out. And coming back to Exist, who's writing the songs? Are you like the main songwriter? Is it a collective process?
I'm the main songwriter. there are things that, like, this new album there's been a lot of contributions. Like, there's one song that's based off of these ideas that Alex wrote. Alex has written songs for Exist before too. Like To Sever the Strings on So True, So Bound. That's an Alex song. So yeah, they contribute ideas, and I'm trying to kind of make it more like that, but it's hard because I get very like tunnel vision, as a writer at least. And I guess everybody's kind of different with that process. But yeah, so I would definitely say I'm the main, but there's a lot of bouncing stuff around right now.
We discussed it a little bit earlier, but what's your approach when you write music for Exist? How do you start? What's your goal when you're writing music?
My goal is just to make a song that I think is awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, but it's I again, it's like pretty intuitive, you know. It usually starts from something kind of simple, or just maybe an idea, or maybe up two ideas that speak to me, you know, that I can't get out of my head. And sometimes that's on the guitar, and sometimes that's more in my head. And sometimes maybe I'll hear an idea and I'll be like, oh, I want to remember that, and I'll sing it into my phone. Sometimes I miss that opportunity, and then it comes back later, you know. So sometimes there's just those things you kind of can't shake. And yeah, so I guess it just comes from, usually a few ideas now. It used to be more this kind of crazy stream of consciousness thing. Like our first album it's a lot of information, which was real natural. But yeah, it just kind of comes from that, and then just molding it. And I usually, if the ideas interest me enough, it sort of answers itself in a weird way. I don't know. What about you? Are you the main writer?
Yeah, I'm writing the songs for the band. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's kind of the same. I try to keep it an intuitive process, despite all the theory I might know and all the stuff like
Right.
that.
Right.
And sometimes I start from the guitar. Sometimes I start for something that I hear in my head. Sometimes I start from a drum groove or something like that. And
Right.
then everything kind of builds together rather quickly. I think once I have a basis idea, I managed to turn it into a whole song pretty naturally. I think pretty quickly. I don't know if it's the same for you. Like for me, finding a good idea is kind of the most challenging part of it, and then everything flows naturally.
Yeah,
Somehow.
I kind of feel that way. Then it's just like putting a puzzle together. And
Yeah.
so for me, sometimes it's really quick, and then sometimes it takes a little longer, but it's also something that if I'm fixated on something enough, I'll think about it constantly, even when I'm not doing it, you know? And so sometimes those things kind of just answer themselves on their own. Like for this album or the one that we're working on now, it's like, especially with the pandemic, I was hiking a lot, just trying to really, and it was like, so I'll just think about songs when I'm like walking around in the woods and stuff, or driving or stuff like that. And yeah, sometimes those things just kind of seem to answer themselves. And then if it's something I'm enthusiastic about, it's sort of, maybe even if it doesn't come quickly, it comes easily in a way. It doesn't feel like a fight.
Yeah, definitely. And what I really loved about Exist when I discovered the band is how rich like the harmony was, like super out of the box melodies and chord progressions and stuff like that. Where do you think the influence for that comes from, or is it like your learning process, like learning about music theory, stuff like that, that made you aware of all of these colors? Because really, it's something that I don't hear a lot in metal, especially extreme music.
Yeah, I think that probably comes largely from like the jazz thing, or just like, but in a way, in the sense that like the harmony thing is just something that we all kind of know how to do. Like everybody in the band plays stuff that has dense harmony like that. And so I think like the core of the melodies and stuff like that comes from more simple places, or it's like it's all pretty intuitive stuff, but then harmonizing stuff like that doesn't seem, it sort of just seems like something that naturally happens. So yeah, I think it probably just from, studying and playing jazz and like denser kind of music like that. Um, and yeah, I think there was a point sort of when I had been studying that stuff maybe, or playing that stuff for maybe like a year or something where there, it seemed like everything, like genres didn't really seem like you sort of have these realizations of like, oh, everything's all kind of the same, and the things that define these styles are really just, oh, well, these guys play with this kind of feel and these guys play with this kind of feel, but it's like it's the essence of all that stuff. Yeah, I'm sure you're the same way where like you can kind of deconstruct that all, and I'm sure if you had to like play one of your songs as like a reggae song or something, you probably could figure out how to do it pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between genres is like the instrumentation. Metal
Yeah.
uses distorted guitars, drums,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
I mean, sometimes it's tonal differences
Sometimes
too,
it's
but or just like the types of chord progressions or whatever. But there's a point where that all kind of comes together, and you kind of you realize there's something a little more innate to it than that. I don't know.
But I really love that approach in Exist, like in your latest record, because I think in metal nowadays there's so much experimentation like around rhythmical concepts and stuff like that. But in terms of harmony, sometimes it always sticks to the same modes or keys or stuff like that. And sometimes I would like even bands that I absolutely love to do maybe more experimentation on like harmonic color and stuff like that. And I don't know if you feel the same way.
I mean, I thought that when I heard you guys, like I felt that I was like, oh, like there's these chord progressions keep me really engaged and kind of catch me off guard in a way, in a good way, like that makes me want to come back to them. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I do think it comes from a lot of metal being approached more by riff, by riffs, and but at the same time, like there is a lot of metal that's coming out now that does seem like it's kind of harmonically rich. Or maybe not in that way, but I don't know. It seems like everybody's using like extended chords and stuff like that. Yeah, maybe a lot of the tonalities are the same. I'm not sure, but yeah, I guess also maybe like a lot of metal musicians kind of learn more from that riff based approach. Whereas like I do think like if you learn the jazz thing, there's sort of a benefit that isn't just about playing jazz at all. It's about just kind of being able to work all music in a way where like, cause jazz musicians can play like any kind of, it's like, I'm doing this wedding gig thing tomorrow and it's like, it'll be probably a bunch of, most of it'll probably be jazz musicians. And it's like, they can kind of at least fake all of those styles because there's a way that you kind of learn to work with, okay, well, this is just what harmony is. And then I guess it kind of just goes back to what we were just talking about with the feel thing. But I do think maybe playing music that's more about the harmony versus just thinking like, oh, well, this is a riff and I learned to play this riff this way. I do think maybe that has an influence on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think
Yeah.
you can really feel that that you had all of this training, that you're also playing other genres. I think in the way you write, and that's great. I think
a lot of pop songs. Yeah. Yeah.
Also in your vocal melodies, I find them very rich. You mentioned that they were more intuitive, but I still think they sound really out of the box. Like sometimes, they. I don't know. There are some hooks in them that I really absolutely enjoy.
Oh, well, that means a lot. That's like the number one thing. I think like at least is trying to have those be hooks. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I there's not an effort to make them stay. I mean, it's just, to me, it's just like whatever. Like they're just things that I think are catchy, and hopefully that translates to other people, I guess.
And you're also doing like a lot of vocal harmonies with two voices, I guess. Are you bringing them live as well?
Yeah, well, so they're more than two. I mean, it's so I just kind of, so I started kind of finding like around when we probably during our first album, but just that because I didn't feel like I could do the pushing thing for more kind of like operatic sort of stuff, like I'm like, okay, well, I don't think I'm Devin Townsend or anything like that. So like, you got to find a way to maybe sometimes thicken this up and make it more texturally interesting. So like I started like double tracking myself a lot, which was sort of something I ripped off of Elliott Smith. I don't know if you're familiar with Elliott Smith, but he's this really amazing singer-songwriter that I think everybody in Exist was obsessed with for a while. And the Cynic guys are really into Elliott as well. And I can hear a lot of Elliott in Cynic's music. And so Elliott, like, there's plenty of other singers that do this. It's not like it's exclusive to him or something, but he wasn't like a great singer, I don't think, from a technical standpoint, but he just had this way of like double tracking his vocals that just sounded, I don't know, it was just really powerful. And, things that he's singing in this really kind of quiet, monotone, maybe monotone's not the right word, but, it's like, it's very quiet singing, but there's something that's like heavy about it, even though it's real low key. And so I think I just was experimenting with my voice and kind of discovered I liked how it sounded. And then I liked like kind of doing the octaves thing, like layering octaves on. And I think it was just a way to thicken it up because I felt like stripped down. It wasn't as, I don't see myself as like a vocalist, so it's just trying to figure out a way to kind of work with that. And then the harmonies thing just kind of came naturally through that, like trying like, I remember like learning that the Queen vocal technique was, I think it was like 3 of them, they all it's like 9 voices because they all like triple tracked everything. So, experimenting with stuff like that, stacking stuff. And then the harmony, just because of the way the music is, that kind of just naturally happens with that, I guess. So yeah.
Do you compose the vocal lines at the same time as the music, or does it happen later on?
Yeah, it's pretty at the same time. It's like pretty. I don't really see them as something I can separate. Like to me, the music doesn't really hold on its own without the vocals, or without the vocal lines at least. So it's like, yeah, I'm usually thinking melody and chord for a lot of the stuff. There's the more riffy based stuff too. But a lot of those more chord based sections, they're really kind of conceived at the same time. And if anything, it's more the harmony following the vocals or following the melodies than vice versa. Although I think usually they're kind of conceived at the same time. Like it's not super common that I'll come up with a chord progression and be like, oh, I got to write a melody for the, it's usually like things I want to. I don't know. Never say never though, because there's no rules to any of that. It just tends to be how it turns out for me, at least.
Okay. Pauline asks us about the lyrics. Do you write them around the concept? And when do you write them at the same time as the music?
Shout out to her, by the way, for getting me on this. So, and for showing us Pauline. To you guys. So, thank you, Pauline. I write them after. They're not at the same time, although I'm trying to write them. So vocal lines I already hear to the T of like even like certain syllables and stuff that I hear as being kind of hooks. And sometimes there's like words I kind of hear, but that doesn't always work out for like them when you're trying to write about a subject. So like there might be an aesthetic to a word or something that I'll hear. And I guess a lot of times that ends up getting scrapped, but like definitely the vocal melodies are already preconceived just as music. And maybe I'll hear kind of a way that I hear it being delivered, but it's not lyrics yet. And then I write lyrics very much to these really specific melodies. And even with the screams, it's like I already kind of know the words that I want to hear and sort of the way that I want to hear that delivered. So then all the lyrics are kind of shaped to that, which probably provides a challenge more than if they weren't, but it's also something that I've just like always done. So actually I wrote lyrics for this album with this guy in Canada earlier this year. Like I recorded this album for this kind of more death metal thing. And I didn't do that. I just wrote the lyrics with the music as I was going because it was all written already. And that was kind of interesting because I've never done. But yeah, normally for like Exist or for any of my other things, like there's another project I have called Wait, that we have a full length that's been done for a little while, and it's not going to come out till next year. But similar style to the Exist stuff, and Alex, our bass player with Exist, plays bass on it as well. And so similar vocal style, and yeah, for all that kind of stuff, at least the stuff that I'm writing, it's usually like I hear the vocal melodies first, and then I shape things around that.
Okay, and what are the concepts and themes in Egoista?
That one's a lot of mortality talk. Partially because I had some like kind of health scares before I was writing the lyrics for that. So then that was that kind of ended up largely being about that. So if I had to sum that album up in like one sentence, it would be coming to terms with mortality.
Okay, that's crazy. It's kind of the same theme in our record, actually.
It's probably a pretty common metal theme, and it's probably also just a common art theme because it's something we all have to deal with. Yeah.
And what are your plans now with Exist? You have new songs already?
Yeah, so we're writing right now. Got like 5 songs that are pretty much arranged and done. Maybe 6, actually. I think there's one that I'd pretty much consider done. Has just kind of, we're talking about it right now, actually. And then there's a whole bunch of sketches that are like little fragments of songs that we've been sending around. So I think we're trying to make like, I think the structure of the album has kind of figured itself out. So trying to have things ready to record drums hopefully in like January. I'm thinking that's what we've been talking about recently. But we're pretty bad with, it seems like we always kind of set like a goal for a deadline and then we always fuck it up. So but I think January is pretty realistic. I think we're going to try to record drums then, depending on Brody, our drummer's schedule. And then hopefully have the whole album done, kind of by the end of spring. And then I don't know when we'll release it because it kind of depends on touring plans for other things. And because I think it'd be with Egoista, and you guys are pretty much in the same boat where you haven't been able to do any full tours for your new album. It sounds like you guys did some shows, right? Like 2 shows.
Yeah, we did 2 shows, 3 actually since the release of the record.
Okay.
Yeah, but now we have nothing until next year.
Yeah, so that the question then becomes like, okay, well, are we going to just release this, or are we going to wait till we can get on a tour with it? And if it's the second one, I know I don't know what's going to happen. I don't, there's a lot of there's been death to all plans for next year, so if that happens, it would coincide with right around when this album is done, and then that might make it hard to. So I don't know. It might be cool to tour it when we release it. So maybe we'll finish it and hold on to it till 20. What's this? Right now it's 2021, so that would be like 2023. But I don't know, man. Well, I guess we just have to see. We have to just figure that out and talk to the label. And I'm not sure. People are. Let's see.
Okay, so you mentioned you have a tour with Death to All maybe coming next year.
Yeah, but I don't know what I'm. Well, we've had festivals. This is like the 3rd time they've been rescheduled, so I think those are actually like announced. And then they've been trying. I don't really know exactly. Kind of take it all with a grain of salt with this pandemic thing. So
yeah,
there's talk about it, but I don't know what will happen or what won't happen.
And someone in the chat asks what the biggest differences are between like the US and Europe in terms of touring, in terms of the scenes in different countries.
So in terms of the experience, I would say the biggest difference I see in Europe is kind of, well, this is more just for the bands, I guess. Not it's not an audience difference, but in Europe the venues kind of take care of you more. So like they fix you a bunch of meals and kind of host you more. And then in the US they usually just throw a few dollars at you and they say go get some food. But that works out pretty well based on the infrastructures, I guess, right? Because like in the US, you can kind of, I don't know, maybe that's how it seems to me. As far as like audiences, I mean, different places are kind of different shows are different across the board. Like in Europe, you do notice certain countries kind of go, there's different demeanors, I guess. So, like, you go to Italy and everybody like, ah. And then,
Yeah.
and then if you're in like, maybe the Netherlands, people are a little bit more stiff and cold, right? But I don't think that means they appreciate it less. I think that's just sort of a cultural characteristic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, and I guess in the US, I'm trying to think if they're like, if I notice big cultural, I mean, there's definitely pretty big cultural differences in different places in the US right now, especially. But I don't know if it translates to like the way people appreciate music. It probably does, but I feel like there's good shows and bad shows everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
So yeah, that's, I guess, this guy says, Pauline just said Grass Pop was announced for Death Doll next June. So I think that's like the third time that's been announced.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe that's
Really?
the third time the Grass Pop was delayed.
Yeah, this is
It's
third
not delayed,
time's
yeah.
the charm. They say third time's the charm.
Exactly.
So that means it's going to happen this year. Maybe.
The Punisher asks if you are still talking to Eric Grief.
A little bit sometimes. So he's not recovering from cancer. He has very bad diabetes, which he's had for a very, very long time, ever since I've known him. And so, yeah, I don't think I don't know how, I talked to him a little bit here and there. I know, I will say this, Eric needs a kidney donation. So if anybody in the chat, just has a kidney to spare, I don't know the blood type, but that is a thing right now. So, yeah, here and there, just little exchanges. That's about the extent of it.
Talking about touring again, what would you say was your biggest experience, the tour you enjoyed the most, or a single show?
I mean, individual shows are probably easier to name than tours, because I feel like most tours have a lot of good memories associated with them. Like I don't think I've had any really terrible tours. I've also been pretty lucky in that regard, because like I tend to, all these bands I've played in, like I tend to get along with everybody pretty well, and I haven't really dealt with, I don't really have any like, I don't think I have too many like drama horror stories, so that's pretty lucky. So like most of my tour have been pretty good. So memorable shows. The last Exist show we did on the Obscura tour in LA, that stands out as pretty memorable. Just seemed like it was a really good show. And then we played a weird show after that. It was like us coming home from the tour. Weird little show in Colorado where there was like one guy there, so we played for one guy.
Did that before also.
Yeah, you gotta.
Did he enjoy the show, the one guy?
Oh yeah, he loved it. So
then
that
it was worth it.
Yeah. DTA, it's on YouTube, that Brutal Assault show that they got like this really good pro shot footage. That was an awesome show. And a lot of those big festivals are awesome. I don't know, a lot of really good shows. I mean, it's hard to just pick out like one, and the same kind of goes for really had a lot of really good experiences and a lot of fun times and a lot of good memories on tour. So.
And so you play some super huge festivals and then play gigs for one person.
Yeah.
How hard is it to have that contrast? Are you still enjoying the smaller gigs all the same?
I like playing certain smaller gigs, because it depends on what the gig is about. I mean, like tomorrow I'm going to play at a, so that's not bad at all. That's not even metal at all. but it still might be fun, or maybe it won't be. I don't know. Maybe it'll be terrible, but it won't be. If the musicians are good, then that makes it fun. I think there's like small situations where, especially if it's like more improvised based music, or there's opportunities for that, then you've got more communication between the musicians. That can be fun in a very different way than playing a big festival, where, if you're playing a big festival and you're playing songs that you've played for the last like 20 nights and you're doing the exact same thing, then at a certain point it's more about like feeding off the crowd reaction. But I don't think all performances have to always be, also it can be really fun just jamming with buddies, at your house or at somebody's house or something. So I don't know. I think you can have I've had some very, very good shows that were very few people,
Yeah, definitely.
And there's awkward ones too. There's definitely awkward ones too. But that's also kind of something that's funny in hindsight. So,
Tini, you were at Death to All in Colmar in France. I was there as well. Amazing. We were talking about it earlier. It was 2013. I first saw you with Death to All, I think.
So that would have been with the Human Guys, 2013.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, with Sean and Paul. Yeah.
On the website Encyclopedia Metalum, the Metal Archives, you're credited as a live vocalist for Obscura in 2018. I think it's from the Vancouver show where Stefan couldn't get it, and all the opener bands, you guys filled in for the show to replace Stefan for the vocals, and I think it's extremely badass.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. We basically did like Obscura karaoke. It was like Weber did some songs, our bass player, Stevie from Inferi. I don't know if you know Inferi, but really sick band, who's kind of ruling the tech death scene right now. And then Simone and Kevin from Beyond Creation, and one of the guys who was on their crew, this guy Dominic, and we all just ended up kind of splitting up the Obscura set and just doing a bunch of Obscura karaoke.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think that was cool.
I think the audience loved it. Well, I can guess.
What did you say?
I get the audience loved it. Well, I hope.
Oh, I don't know. I think there were probably... I was the first person to come out, so I'm sure that... I think there were definitely some weird looks.
Okay.
But because they didn't say anything beforehand either, they just said. But like, I don't know what else you got.
And did you guys?
It's better than canceling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think I really deserve to be on archives for the Obscura thing. For that, that's
they
actually,
know everything.
Yeah,
that's funny. Hilarious. And also, people always think that I've seen myself credited to Obscura in like articles and stuff, and I think it's because people see Death to All and then they see that like Stefan's done some of the stuff with that too, so then they think that like they credit me as the Obscura guy, and that's not true. But
well,
I don't know.
It's still funny.
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, that was a fun time. We did it. We did it. They did it 3 times, but then I got vertigo before one of the shows that was going to happen, and I had to go to the hospital, so I didn't do the Obscura thing that night in Calgary.
Okay.
Which songs did you play for Obscura? How many did you have to learn?
Oh, there's only 2. It was I don't know titles. I'm sorry.
And did you guys just practice it the day before the show, or?
There was no practice. No, it was literally like
printing.
Oh, I did. What's the opener on Acroasis? I did that. Sermon of the Seven Sons. I did that, and then Ten Sipiroth.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. But nobody knows when you're screaming if you're pronouncing it right.
Yeah.
So, no, there wasn't any rehearsal. It was a really spontaneous sort of thing where basically like something happened where like Stefan didn't have his passport, and so they didn't. So I think it was like they got to the border, and he realized he didn't have his passport, and that was coming into Canada, so for Vancouver. So then it ended up being like he had to go to. I think he had to fly down to San Francisco or something and go to the embassy. And so they just kind of were stuck without that, and they just decided, okay, I guess we'll try to make this work. And so no, there wasn't any rehearsal. It was literally a day of just, hey, everybody listen to your song, try to like cram, and then like I don't know if the other guys all did this, but I just took the lyrics and like printed them and taped them on the monitor. So I didn't really.
Okay, I see.
I was cheating. I had a teleprompter. Yeah. I probably didn't nail the rhythms.
But people don't come for the vocals; they come for the guitar solos anyway. So, and shredding bass and drums. So.
Well, they've got hooks though. I think Obscure is a pretty hooky band, you know. So, but yeah.
So they did just with like one guitar, because nobody could learn the guitar songs in one day.
Well, no. So they had that all. Yeah, that was all on. They had the stems, and I guess like they probably could have done that with the vocals, but maybe just thought it wouldn't look as good. Yeah. So, or maybe that'd be kind of weirder. But yeah. So I think they had like. It just ended up being. So those are the guys who now. Is it Obsidian? Their new band. Their new band's crazy.
Obsidious, yeah.
Yeah, Obsidious. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, those guys are insane.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the full record.
Yeah, that singer's crazy too. But so yeah, it was those three, and then they just had like kind of the stems, and they did a pretty good job making it work, I think.
Yeah, I bet they did.
So the Punisher says the rapping part at the show at the Piranha Bar, that's insane that they were there for. I guess the Punisher is in Montreal.
The rapping,
but that was like, well, we did this. So one of the last little tours we did was with Beyond Creation. And do you know Equipoise and Wormhole? Yeah. So we did. So that was a little package we did for like 5 shows, and it was awesome. And then after the show, there was like karaoke going on, and so we did this rapping thing where we weren't actually saying words, but we did like karaoke. But we were just it's not fun to like imitate out of context, but that's just funny. That it was just a funny thing that happened that the Punisher was there for.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And apart from all of that, are you doing all the session work, all the projects?
Yeah. So yeah, I've done a few albums this year. Well, one of them was the Cynic album. Just doing some screams on that, but then yeah, I've done like a few kind of a few death metal albums, doing vocals for them, and then a few guest solos here and there. And actually, it's all been music that I like, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, I did a thing. Actually, somebody here says Dominic Forrest. I never know how to pronounce his last name. Is it
Lapointe?
Lapointe. Yeah. Who also was at that Montreal show we were just talking about, but he played on an album that I recorded vocals for, which turned out really cool, I think. So yeah, doing a lot of like session stuff like that, and then we have that Wait album. Wait is the name of the band.
Yeah,
that is coming out next year.
Listen to it today. Yeah, it's really great. And yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You want to talk a little bit about it? Is it like a side project from Exist, or because
it's kind of like a side project that it's a friend of mine is the main guitarist who's like the main writer, and I've known him for 10 or 11 years or something like that, and he's a really great guitarist who also has all the you know, like he plays jazz too and does all these jazz gigs around here, and it just kind of has all of that stuff in his language. And so that's an album that we're going to be putting out next year. I think like early next year. It's been done for a while, but it turned out really cool. So I'm really excited about that album too. Yeah.
Okay,
And you
great.
mentioned earlier that you are playing a wedding gig tomorrow. Is that something you do on a regular basis? Is it like a,
Not,
a part-time job or something like that?
it's something I've done like here and there for the last maybe like 5 years, but for I guess coming out of the pandemic, or I don't know if we're coming out of the pandemic, so, but this last since like the end of September, I've just been doing them like constantly, or doing them every weekend. But Alex, our bass player, does them like he does like that's like he does do that pretty much for a living, or like that's like a huge source. You know, he's doing like 3 a week.
Really?
And I actually did one with him last week, which was pretty cool. So we brought the metal to the wedding.
Oh, really? What did you play?
Yeah, we just played a bunch of like, I don't know, like I got some songs right here. I don't know, just a bunch of pop tunes. You know, some R&B, some like we played that Aha song "Take on Me," but we didn't have players, so it was like me and the horn players playing the melody. I don't know, just a bunch of shit. It was fun. It was fun
And
having Alex on one of those. I've never done one with him before, so
I guess these are also pretty long gigs. You have to prepare a lot of songs for that.
yeah,
right?
that's the catch. It's like 40 songs every time, so that's why like tonight I have to like cram maybe 5 or 6 of them. The good thing is like if you do, because like Alex does so many of them, everything, you know. But I'm still like reading my way through a lot of them.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, so that teaching, yeah, random metal projects, you know, a lot of vocals. People, you know, I guess the Chuck vocal style or like sort of the old school vocal style is a little bit of it. So that's kind of cool.
Okay, so apart from that, you're teaching like for a living.
Yeah, but again, you know, it's a little. And you were saying the same thing. It's a little cut down during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So most of what I'm doing is online right now. Like I have some lessons later today. But you know, I before the pandemic, I was doing it all in person. But I don't know. It's been like pretty stable still. It's just not as much as it was before the pandemic. So, and then I got a little part-time job right now too, where I'm a COVID courier. So I pick up people's COVID tests from like schools, and I bring them back to a warehouse so they can find out if they have positive tests.
Okay.
So that's pretty easy.
Cool. And yeah, for how long have you been teaching music? Is that something that you've been always doing like on the side or?
Yeah, I've been doing that for like 10 or 11 years, like kind of as my main job. And yeah, so and then you know, and I guess I would do like that, but I've been doing some studios for the last like 10 years. And yeah, that's the closest thing I've done to like a regular kind of full-time thing. Um which is good. It works pretty well with the touring thing because I sub it out when I leave, and I am really meticulous about what everybody's doing. Yeah, so I actually enjoy it. Like it's I don't know. Every situation is very, very different, you know, and I've got a very wide variety of students, and like 90% of them don't really know what I do and stuff, but that's like,
Really?
yeah, but that's like okay, you know, like it's kind of refreshing in a way. Not that there's anything wrong with that either. I like talking, but yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot of diverse situations.
I really love it too. And do you have, so you don't have a lot of people that are fans of your work with Exist or stuff like that. That's not the most
I'll
you
get
think.
like kids who come in who are metalheads, and then they are into death, and I've had a few that didn't even that I did the DTA thing, you know, and then they like find out and they're like, what? um, but yeah, no, most of them aren't. I mean, maybe they are. I don't know. I think also just don't do it that much. You know, it's more like I'm just trying to help people do whatever they want to do with music, which can manifest itself into many things, you know. But there's like a problem solving that I'm sure you've experienced this as well, where it's like everybody learns things very differently, everybody retains things very differently, everybody has different interests, and everybody has very, very different strengths and weaknesses, you know. So it's like you're kind of finding a threshold for what works for an individual, and it's very different across the board. And I don't know, I find that kind of interesting.
Yeah, same here. We love trying to find how to communicate to people, how their brain works, how their brain processes the information.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I guess you get some little some kids that don't really want to be there too every so often, you know. But
yeah,
you know,
that's kind of part of it.
But there's a lot of really, I have a lot of really, I don't really sweat that.
Apart from that, do you have other hobbies or stuff you like to do apart from music?
Not really. I don't know. I guess like I mean I like hiking. I like outdoorsy stuff. I feel like I need to think about this, which means I probably don't. Like I don't know. I like doing outdoorsy stuff. Like I was trying to bike a lot for a while, and then I broke my bike. Or like I was trying to get into mountain biking, but I broke my bike. So I don't know. I don't know. I like food. It's pretty good to eat.
Yeah.
I like watching like comedy stuff, you know. I like that's kind of it, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of music.
And we didn't
what
talk
about you guys?
Well, yeah, I love like playing board games, stuff like that. And
board games?
I recently, board games, yeah.
And like which ones?
Like a lot. I don't know if you know that.
Some obscure German ones.
Yeah, like my uncle is a big fan of board games. He has like over 1,000, and he always introduces me to new ones. Like I like small ones, like last like 10 to 15 minutes, to big ones that you play for like 3 hours. Of, different stuff.
Do you play chess at all?
Not really, no.
I do. A little bit. At least I know the rules, but saying at play, I don't know.
I was playing a little bit online, like at the beginning of the pandemic, and but I'm not very good at it. But my dad was like a serious chess player who he doesn't do it anymore, but he was like professional for a while, and that was like his thing. And so growing up, we always had like 8 million chess books around the house, but I never really picked it up. But that's amazing. Just during the pandemic, I started playing people. Again, I'm not good at it.
That's amazing.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
It's very intense. Yeah.
Yeah, figure.
But so they're all like obscure? They're all like obscure board games?
Well, no, not really. I mean, there are some that are maybe famous. There's a game called The Game. I don't know if you know this one.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. It's like a collaborative game where you have to beat the game, basically, and stuff like that I love. And, yeah, there are a lot of them. My collection is growing bigger and bigger.
Do you have, you got Candyland?
No.
Oh, that's a great one. You should. No, that's a little kid's game. I'm kidding.
Okay.
There's like, you don't actually have any control over anything you do in the game. You just pick a card, and then the whole game's randomly predetermined. But I think that's why I like it, because there's no strategy. It's just like fatalistic, like life.
It's the opposite of chess, basically, where you can.
Yes, the opposite of chess. Yeah.
But I think I like both. I like all types of game, like some that are totally analytical and some that are just for fun, like
right.
Random.
Do you guys play like video games at all, or?
Yeah, from time to time. Yeah.
I haven't really since like high school, but I keep telling myself I'm gonna like buy a Nintendo Switch next time I go on tour.
Yeah, Vincent.
Still play the PS2 and GameCube, actually, so I'm pretty old school.
Yeah. That's not even that old school. We were Nintendo 64.
Yeah. I mean old school because that's what I grew up to, but
Right.
Well, Vince and me, I think we got really serious level in Mario Kart Double Dash on GameCube. We confront each other from time to time. I think we might do this on Twitch someday. Can be fun.
Oh yeah, if I do get a Switch, we'll do that. I'll play you guys, because that's the one thing I wanted. I have the phone Mario game that I was playing for a while.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the thing I want. I want to get Mario. So yeah.
Classics.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything we didn't discuss already? Anything you want to talk about?
No, not in particular. I mean, like whatever,
Maybe
I
in
don't know if
terms
there's other people. Nobody in chat. I think, did we answer all the chat questions? Or?
I think so. If you have some more questions, keep them coming.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't really talk about gear apart from the guitars.
Gear.
Early on. So it's there. What amps do you use? What kind of stuff?
I'm not a huge gearhead, but lately I've been playing through a Kemper live. But I just got it. I was doing an XFX, and then I don't know. I got this Kemper just to kind of see, and but I've been using the Neural DSP plugins too. So I guess I'm all digital right now. What about you guys?
We are using Kemper as well.
Yeah,
it's life changing. Before that, we had tube amps. I think the Kemper is just so much more convenient. Like you have
easier,
the same sound every night,
I know.
And you don't have to worry about mic placement and stuff like that. So,
like for these little gigs I've been doing, it's like I don't even have I've just been using a monitor that my friend recommended. That is I don't even have a cab right now. I've just been using that. I think for like Exist stuff, I'll use a power amp and a cab again, which is what we were doing before. Okay. I was using the XFX, but same sort of thing, So yeah, that's probably what I'll do in the future is Kemper to power amp, because this one's like the foot unit. It doesn't have a power amp in it. And then cab for stage volume, but then going DI.
Okay. Yeah, we only use the DI on stage. We have in-ear monitors and stuff, so there are basically no cabs on stage.
Yeah, the only thing is it's because we did that on some of the Cynic tours I did.
Yeah, I think it was the first band that I saw using no cabs on stage back in 2011, maybe something like that.
The only downside is just that then if people are like standing up close, it's kind of like they might not hear it as much. So that's the only thing where it's like I feel like it's good to have some kind of stage volume. But yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe it's not totally necessary. It depends on the venue too.
Yeah, I've seen some venues that have like very small speakers right in front of the audience, and that I think does the trick. If you don't have cabs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Or like I've heard of some people like turning they just, especially if they have in-ears, they just turn the monitors around.
Yeah, can work. Probably not the best sounding solution, but can
I don't know. But so yeah. I mean, I like tube amps still. I kind of like using all these modelers, kind of makes me want to get back into that. Have you tried those neural plugins at all?
I never tried them, but
you should.
Great. Yeah,
you should definitely, because the thing is, I feel like I'm advertising right now, but I'm not, because I don't have any connection to them. But you can use them. Like you can trial them for like 2 weeks for free, so you can just download, try them out, but yeah, they're pretty insane. They're pretty convenient too. So I don't know. We might be using something like that for this new album.
Okay, what did you use for the last one? Was it all digital?
Yeah, the last one was all digital. It was that was mostly Matt's Kemper, the other guitarist's Kemper, and he's much better at dialing sounds than I am. I'm not very good at that. But so yeah, it was mostly his Kemper and then a little bit of my XFX, depending on what was recorded where. And I guess Pauline just asked if I have a home studio and where do I record our albums or my albums or any albums, I guess. And yeah, so typically I've done vocals somewhere else. Guitars we've usually done at the other guitarist's house, but some of it's here, and it's probably we all have our own setups. So the only big thing is, and I've actually been doing vocals here now, since moving into this new place. So I guess with Egoista and the Wait album that is going to come out, I did the vocals at a friend's studio who's really good at vocal engineering, and he's also like a vocal teacher. He's like what we're talking, knows all the analytical stuff. Mike Semeski is his name from he sang on like one of the Intervals albums before they kind of went instrumental. I guess they were instrumental before that, and then they did with him, and then he did like the harp. He's in a band called Raunchy from Denmark. But so he's been engineering vocals and kind of producing stuff. But I think I might do this one here and maybe just kind of ask him he's really smart with that stuff, so I'll probably ask him for advice on stuff. And
so the reason for going to him was to have like a different perspective.
Well, part of it also was just I wasn't confident in my engineering abilities for that, and haven't really normally like now I'm in a house, but for the last 10 years I've been in like apartments and townhouses where I don't really want to scream, like especially later at night or anything. So that's kind of been an issue. But now I can kind of do that. And also just the spaces weren't that great for it, but I've kind of been able to. I did a really shitty job treating this little room, but it's like I think I want to try to really get some better treatment in here. But it works enough that I think with the mic I'm using, like I can, there's not even a ton of room sound anyway. So I've been engineering stuff here, and so far I haven't gotten any complaints. But I don't know. So I think that's part of it is like budget stuff too. It's like it's expensive recording somewhere else. And I think that's probably an issue for most bands now. Most of us don't have the budgets to really go into studio. So, but going back to the perspective question, it is nice having another perspective, especially from somebody who knows both the voice better than me and also the engineering stuff. He's kind of like good at both of those things because he knows how to produce vocals really well, and so I'd rather do it with somebody else. Is there? It's just it just kind of comes down to the budget thing, Yeah.
Jackson, you asked that question before, I think, but we forgot it. How do you see Exist's first record, Sunlight, these days?
I believe in it strongly still. I don't think about it too much. It's not how we want to do things now. But I think it was a very, I still think it was a very genuine effort. Like, and I still feel convicted in the decisions. It was a hard album to record because we didn't really know what we were doing, like engineering wise, and it felt like we were not as together as people in some ways, maybe. But also there was a lot more experimentation in the escaping stuff. Like we did a whole bunch of psychedelic kind of, not doing psychedelics, I mean sounds. Like there were things where we'd like break glass and like alter the sound, and a lot of that was time. So what would I do different now? Probably, well, I think just mostly engineering, and also like it's not how we write as much now. Now, the goal is more to write like concise like songs. Whereas Sunlight was more like this, it was almost intentionally meant to be overwhelming. It was almost meant to like purposefully overwhelm the listener in terms of the density of it and the arrangements, which might sound a little weird, but it made sense at the time. So I stand by that album. I think it was a very genuine thing to all of us, and it still is something that in a lot of ways is special to, I none of us have been in contact with that drummer for a while, but I would imagine he'd do the same thing. It was a pretty special thing for us. And there's things I miss about that process because now with using all the DI stuff, yeah, it'd be nice to do a little more soundscaping stuff on albums that isn't like VSTs because yeah, like a lot of that was him experimenting with. He would take like a recorder, or like a kid's instrument, right? Like, and then he would like pitch shift the sounds and play and track it like 10 times and, make this texture that had like chord tones of something that I wrote, but then, so things like that it would be cool to get into. Part of it is always like the time factor, it takes time to kind of fuck with stuff like that, but that would be cool to get back into. So yeah, I don't know. I think just we're better engineers now. We've thought about remixing that album and but I think it would involve like we do have the DIs, so maybe we would just try to get the rhythm guitars to sound better and maybe some of the more present guitar parts, the soundscaping stuff would all stay the same and maybe we'd probably have to do some like sample blends with the drums because I wouldn't want to just replace everything, but it's also the drum engineering wasn't really, it's limiting. So there might be a way, if there's a way, maybe use some kind of slate stuff and try to just get the velocities to sound very true to the original recordings. Also, that album's I don't think it's grid. It's like, I think some of it's not even to a click or if it is, there's so much push pull that you can barely tell. Cause we had an issue with that, like relearn one of the songs recently with our current drummer, where we were like, wait, is this even to a click track? But thank you to Jackson for saying it's a great record. Yeah, thank you. It still means a lot to us. Any upcoming collab with Defeated Sanity? And there's more Dharmata stuff that Lily is writing. He's written 2 songs, maybe more now. And they're very, very crazy. So I'm excited for that. I don't know how soon that'll be because I think stuff. And they'll probably be, I could be wrong on this, but they'll probably be like another regular Defeated Sanity album before that, which by the way, I say regular, but Defeated Sanity is not a very regular band. I don't know if you guys have checked that stuff out at all, but it's like, that guy's crazy. Like I think Lily's a genius. I don't know. But yeah, so I think there's going to be another Dharmata EP. We might not call it Defeated Sanity. It might just be called Dharmata because, just to separate it from that band. But there is more music like that coming along. I can say objectively, because I have nothing to do with writing it, that it is very, very, and I'm excited about it.
I love the band, both in their brutal death metal side and their more Dharmata side. I think
the new album is insane. Like, that stuff is crazy.
I love his drumming as well. It's like very, very natural for something that extreme.
Yeah.
And the sound on the records is really natural, I think.
Well, and he played all the guitar on the new one too.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's very conscious of, like, he's an artist who really just, he's like stressing over every little decision of every second, and that's just what he does. He doesn't really seem to I don't think he cares at all about any kind of like commercial success or anything like that. Like he just goes for it and pours everything into that music. And it's really admirable.
Definitely. And that's also a band that is split on 2 continents, right? Because he's still in Germany, but Jakob is living in the States right now.
Now it's like that. Yeah, it wasn't when I first worked with them. He hadn't moved to LA yet, so they were both still living in Berlin. And Christian, who's not with them now, but he was like in Hamburg, which still was kind of an inconvenience because I think they had to like bring him down from there. I guess they've had American vocalists. No, they didn't. They had a German vocalist at the time, Connie, who did Passages. So like I think, and I don't know how close he lived to Berlin, but they all were in Germany at the time. So like, yeah, now it's just Lily in Berlin and 2 guys on the West Coast in the US, and I guess they're kind of in between guitarists right now. So
it's complicated.
Yeah, I think he misses that too, because they really are the kind of band that would get together in a room and just jam,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you guys? What about you guys? Do you guys work remotely, or do you guys get in?
Well, we rehearse a lot. We, I think it's a very important part for us, the playing together thing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The three of us live quite close to each other. It's only the bass player has for 3 hours to come and rehearse. So we usually do like full weekends of rehearsing and stuff like that. But still, yeah, I couldn't see myself just rehearsing for tours or stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's kind of what we've fallen into. Well, although we can get together, not our drummer, but the rest of us can all kind of get together because we all live in Maryland, like kind of close. You know, Alex and I live really close. We get together, but it kind of depends on what we're doing. Like lately, we've been just passing stuff around online. You know, it hasn't been too much in person stuff. But we used to be a band that like we're in the room every, like every weekend. You know, even if we didn't have shows or whatever, it was like when we work on the Sunlight stuff, it was more like that. And then it gets kind of harder with life, I guess, and with everybody doing stuff and all of our schedules and whatnot. But I guess the option's still there, at least for the three of us to get together. And we probably will for certain things with this album. We'll kind of see how it goes.
sure. And
But
speaking of upcoming collabs, are you still working with Cynic? You sung some growls on the new tune, right? Is there anything more to it?
there's growls like on other songs on the album, but it's very like layered. I mean, it's very you'll see. That album's really cool though. That album, the soundscaping stuff is really, really awesome. So yeah, I don't really know. I think I don't know really what Paul's plans are as far as playing live, I'd be surprised if he doesn't want to do it. But yeah, so I just kind of take that as it comes, and you know, I have no idea what his plans are after releasing the album, So I don't know. It's kind of ambiguous, but that's okay. Yeah, we'll see. I no idea. It's not the easiest time to do shows right now anyway. And I guess if he was going to be doing shows with like Matt Lynch, the drummer now, uh, here on the East Coast, and I don't know if he'd get a bass player. I just have no idea. So yeah,
Because
I
the
don't
whole
know.
record is with synth on bass, like the
Yeah, it's a
single.
synth bass. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think the decision for that was largely just not wanting to feel like he was because anybody who's gonna play those roles is gonna be in the shadow of the person that you know and those are two very very those are impossible musicians to just face, like so I think the drums it's already that, and that's a very tough position for like Matt Lynch to be in. And so I think he just wanted to maybe make like a different thing, especially right after Malone, dying, and it was like, originally I've heard demos of some of these with Malone. I think that, and even the process in terms of how long it took by that, so was influenced by his involvement with Malone. So yeah, I think he just wanted to kind of do and not feel like he was like replacing him, And it actually kind of is a cool approach, I think. I think in that sense, it's kind of cool because it is just a different thing. And, it's still, there's a lot of the songs I have, I think anybody could debate about the identity of the band because, obviously those guys were such a huge part of the identity and those are pretty irreplaceable voices. But, it's I don't know. It's everybody can think what they want to think. It's a very cool album.
Cool. Can't wait to hear it. What are your favorite tracks from So True So Bound? Asks Jackson again.
Probably So Bound, the fourth track, and Take My Picture, and probably Happily Ever After too. Yeah. Those are probably my favorites.
What about the Egoista record? What are the favorites on there?
I actually don't know. That one's harder to pick. I'm pretty happy with that album. I think. I don't know. I like I mean, I don't think it's a favorite of the people listening to it, but I really like the last track on it, Amongst the Trees, and maybe Lottery. The Lottery. Oh, the opening track too, I think. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Tough question.
I'm pretty good with all of them. Yeah.
Right. If you have some more questions, feel free to ask them in the chat.
I think I'll tell you what my favorite tracks on your new album are. I think it's the last two. I think Epitaph is really, really cool. Although bold move calling it Epitaph because there's already a very famous tech death song, Epitaph.
Yeah.
And there's a very famous prog song called Epitaph. But
Yeah.
but I think regardless of that, I remember the title for that reason, and I think that song's fucking sick. That's a great song.
Well, thank you.
And I really like that last track as well. And that whole album's awesome. So I gotta check the back catalog more.
Yeah, when the track list was released, some people actually thought we did a cover, but
of which one? It could have been, because it could be King Crimson.
Yeah, Necrophagists,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, you guys could do either.
That would be a nice idea to do like a mashup of the two. One or the style of the other might be a nice challenge, I think.
Either song would not be weird for you guys to cover. Like your context is wide enough that you could get away with it.
Thanks.
It would be harder to cover. I think Necrophagist, to make it our own would be very hard.
That's true. You're not allowed.
Imagine it's played otherwise. So
it's illegal. Yeah, you're not allowed to make that different.
I think that record is really timeless. I mean, Epitaph.
I agree. Yeah, I was way into that, and I agree. There's some sort of, as like sterile as it is, there's some sort of magic wizardry there that is like not quantifiable, and there's like a perfection to it.
Definitely, it was so in advance on its time. I think also.
Yeah.
Like, still today, it sounds super modern and.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, that's a perfect album for sure. And definitely a game changer, because everybody wanted to be Necrophagist for a while, and still kind of do, the tech death scene. But I think even just the recording approach of like, even if it's not even always a good thing, that super perfectionism kind of like, that was the first album I can think of that was like super quantized to that degree. And I remember talking to Christian and Harmonies about it, and I remember saying that one day where I spent like 6 hours recording like one note. I was like super frustrated with Muhammad over it, like literally one note. But that's a game changing for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what you mentioned, now it's true. I don't know of any earlier record that is so precise and so clinically tight.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that was like, well, because like for example, like I played with Alex Rudinger, when he was at a very young age, and have you seen him drum much? Like he's like super tight, like he's and and that sort of thing came almost out of a weird, like, I don't think he realized how quantized that stuff was, so then he just thinks that's the bar, and does this OCD thing where he's like trying to be like the perfect independent drummer and everything's like that, like, so it's almost like that kind of the technology side of it. And they pulled it off live too. I mean, I got to see Necrophagist with Hanes and with Marco Miniman and with Romain on different occasions, and they crushed it every time. So I mean, but yeah, it's kind of interesting how that's the first album I can think of that has that level of tightness, and then it kind of influenced things, both in terms of recording technique, for better or worse sometimes, but also in terms of like then that becomes people really trying to play that to that level of tightness, and I've got like, guys that can really crush that stuff at like 120% speed and whatnot, and it's, yeah.
But yeah, it has good and bad side, I think, like you said.
Well, it makes us all like have recording anorexia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
which we try not to care too much about. I think that's not our game in a way, as a band. Like I think, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it's also context dependent because there are albums that fit from being like that, and then there's times when sometimes it's kind of can get boring too. So I think it just depends on the artist.
Yeah, sure. And to me, it's really a different thing, like recording and playing it live. I mean, on the record, I would want it to be as perfect as possible because it's going to be the version that reflects the ideas, And,
Yeah, that's true. I think for us, it's
I'm
like
fine with like trying to have it clinical and stuff like that. But to
we
a
always
certain
want it
degree,
to sound like a real performance, but a very good real performance. So it's like not necessarily the perfected thing, but it's still edited to the point that it's still like our personal best. It's what our best night would be, and probably realistically better. But yeah, there's different philosophies, I guess, that kind of can come with that, and I don't know. I don't really have any dogma associated with any of that, I guess. So it's like there's albums that I like that are more like what you're saying, like the absolute perfect thing, and that's like kind of the standard. And then there's stuff that I like that's a lot more raw too. So
yeah, it's kind of the same for me. But I'm having a hard time accepting something that is not perfect, for myself. I mean,
for you,
yeah,
but what about for stuff you listen to?
yeah, for stuff I listen to, it's totally different. But that's
Yeah,
the paradox, I think.
yeah. Well, we think a lot more about what everybody else is doing. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, sometimes I'll think back on like some little detail that I was obsessing over something, and I'll just realize like how much the shit about that thing, and also how maybe there's other things that bother those people that aren't that thing that I
Yeah,
ignored completely. So it's yeah, it's easy to get that to the point of like mental illness.
yeah. I mean, like, I also love like improvising solos and stuff, like jamming and stuff like that. But the moment I enjoyed it, and I think when I played for people live, it's great. But listening back to it, there's nothing I would keep. I mean,
Right.
for doing
You
a record, so that's
Yeah.
the paradox in it.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Well, I think with like a production, it's hard to want to do that. There's been actually points on Exist albums where things have ended up improvised. But or like like there were some songs kind of 50-50 or like, but yeah, then it's very easy to then get dissatisfied with that. But then also there's also kind of a relief with that sometimes too, where you're just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do 10 and pick the best one or something like that. I don't know. It is hard to do with this kind of music. I feel like it's something that we're doing less and less on the recordings because of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's really a matter of mindset. Also, you can accept
Mhm.
it from the people you listen to, but not from yourself. So that's kind of the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, cool. Are there any more questions from the chat? From that, I think we've covered quite a lot already.
Cool.
I don't know if you have something that you want to add to this or.
When are you guys gonna get over to the US and then take us on tour?
Well, we have never played in the US
No,
yet.
it's not easy.
No,
It's not financially easy. And
no.
with the visas and everything, but that'd be sick if you
Well, this is definitely one of our goals for the maybe couple years, maybe more. We don't know, but yeah, it's definitely something we want to do and we have to do, I think.
Yeah, I think you will. I think, it seems like the album that you guys have out right now has some traction and whatnot, and it's definitely it's a unique thing, and so yeah, but that would be real cool.
Yeah, would definitely be great to share the stage. I think it would be
Yeah,
a nice package.
that'd be awesome.
All right.
Anyway, thank you very, very much for your time today, for answering our question and chatting with us during those 2 hours. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
It was a pleasure.
And it's been fun, and we'll talk more and whatnot.
And
yeah, hopefully we'll see each other in a continent.
yeah,
no matter which one.
That'd be great. Yeah, and of course, thank you very much to every one of you in the chat to be here with us tonight, to stay with us and to ask your interesting questions. So yeah.
Yeah, and this is going to be available for rewatch on YouTube as well. So if you missed parts of it, you're going to be able to rewatch it later on.
That's like the improvising thing where we can listen back to it and hate ourselves for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool. And thanks to everybody in there, and thank you to Pauline too for for kind of putting it together and spreading the word and whatnot.
Thank you, Pauline. I discovered the Killer Band because of that, because of you. Thanks to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
great.
Cool.
There is Sebastien on the chat who he's sad because he missed the live. It will be on YouTube. And if you have one question, we can still answer it.
We also could recreate the entire thing that we just did for another 2 hours.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
How did we start?
Let's go. Yep.
Right, guys, don't forget to also follow Exist on social media. Follow also Fractal Universe. We are present everywhere. Where can you find Exist?
Yeah. I'm really bad at this. It's facebook.com/exist. Instagram, we exist. Is it underscore? Do you call those underscore official? Exist band official. I'm sorry. Exist underscore band underscore official. And then Bandcamp. What's Bandcamp? Is it like exist.bandcamp?
Martin, you just put it in the chat.
Oh yeah, that's I wouldn't have thought of that.
The latest record.
Yeah. Let me drop those links in there. Exist is not a good name for like Google purposes. By the way, it's I regret that decision. In the social media world, it seemed really cool.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to find a good sounding name which doesn't exist elsewhere. I think with Fractal Universe we're not so bad actually. I think
yeah, but still it's hard to stick out in the hashtag.
They're two difficult names on their own, but if you put them together, it's a little easier.
Yeah.
So that might not actually be too bad. I think you might be in better shape than Exist. And then
That's
wait, I didn't. That's not a good name either.
Well, when we search for Fractal Universe in YouTube, for example, we sometimes found some cosmology things. But yeah, I think for now we are quite well established, so people find us quite easily, which is cool.
There's a I think Indonesian band that I don't think they're together anymore, but they're called Exist, and they were like really big over there.
Okay.
So that's that's not good for us.
Oh yeah.
But cool.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much for having me. And
thank you. Yeah. Thank you once again.
I look forward to seeing what you guys do, talking to you more. Maybe we'll play some chess or something. I don't know. Maybe we'll play some Mario Kart. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
we can definitely do that.
Okay.
All right.
It's noted. Thank you very much again.
Sweet.
And
all right, see you guys.
Bye people, and see you next time.
All right.